What's up, everybody? Happy New Year! Well, close anyway. We're about a day away from the end of 2020, which I'm sure many of you are excited for. Hopefully, 2021 will bring better things. But I wanted to have a live stream today just because I figured got to have one more for the year. And I've been dying to want to talk about Mandalorian season 2 spoilers, and I figure it's been long enough now that most of you, if you're planning on watching it, have already done so. So that's going to be kind of the main focus, though, of course, if you guys have questions or what have you, uh, who knows where the topic will take us. But again, my main focus was, Mandalorian, which honestly I think is probably one of the best things to happen this year. Um, I wouldn't consider, the Black Series line to be my favorite action figure line of the year, but definitely I feel like the Mandalorian, season 2 was one of the most exciting things to happen this year. Good things to happen this year, I should say. So, you know, I didn't hate the sequels like many of you guys out there seem to have, but even I've got to admit that the sequels did not make me excited for Star Wars like The Mandalorian has. To me, Star Wars had kind of gone into a rut, and I had just kind of grown bored with it, the figures and all. But Mandalorian has definitely kind of revitalized my excitement for Star Wars, and looking forward to seeing what next year brings. For Star Wars in general, but with action figures, with obviously season 3 of The Mandalorian, the Boba Fett series, the Book of Boba Fett. I'm looking forward to that. The only downside to those things is we've got to wait an entire goddamn year until those start up, because for whatever reason the Mandalorian season 3 isn't going to begin until next December. But and I'm thinking maybe, there's going to be crossover since both Boba Fett and Mandalorian are going to essentially be starting about the same time. I'm wondering if there's going to be a lot of crossover between those two shows next season, which would kind of make sense, if they did. So I've got my eggnog once again, which I got to finish up. I don't know if I'd really associate eggnog with New Year's, but I had to finish it up. Can't drink eggnog any other time of year. Let's see who's in the house. So Tom's in the house. Blake, what's up, my man? Happy New Year's. Cass is in the house. Happy New Year's to you. Prophet 924, Happy New Year's. CM Brock 1, giving the thumbs up. Hate is a strong word, Prophet says. More disappointment than hate. Yeah, I don't know. Like, when I came out of the theater so it's weird, because when I came out of the theater of Force Awakens, I was really disappointed. And I think it's because, to me, Force Awakens, while not really a bad movie, was almost a carbon copy of A New Hope. The story, the basic plot, and everything. And Salome, of course, is joining us, everyone. So, welcome. Salome is a big Star Wars fan. But so I was really disappointed when I first came out of the theater for Force Awakens, because I just felt like they had just kind of repeated, the Star Killer base was the Death Star. I mean, they had to get plans, or essentially the map to Luke Skywalker. I mean, it was just, to me, very unoriginal. Again, I didn't think it was bad. I wanted something different. And so when The Last Jedi came out, and I came out of the theater of that one, I was actually very excited, because it was very different from what we had generally seen. The fact that, they had Luke, be the way he was. I didn't hate that. I know a lot of people are like, well, Luke would have never gone into hiding like that. Well, I don't know if that's the case. If you really think about the pressure that Luke would have been under, Luke was I mean, if we're being fully honest, Luke was not really a fully trained Jedi. He got a quick, a speed course in Jedi training from Yoda on Dagobah there, and then he had to go out and save the universe, and then was all of a sudden this Jedi master. So, I don't think Luke had gained the years of Jedi wisdom that most Jedi had. So, and under this tremendous pressure of having to essentially relaunch the Jedi Order, and then when things didn't work out with Ben Solo, I think you could understand how you might, go into hiding and such. And just become depressed over your failure that you didn't live up to all this hype that essentially the galaxy put on your shoulders. So I don't hate that aspect of Last Jedi. And I love that, I've said this before, but I love the scene at the end when Luke comes in and faces off against Kylo Ren and everything. I think that's that scene chokes me up even still. Now, other stuff in the Last Jedi, like the stuff in the middle with the casino planet and Rose, ramming her vehicle into Finn's vehicle, all of that I could have done without. I didn't really like that, and even the whole thing about we're just barely we can just barely stay in front of these Star Destroyers was a little weak as well. So those portions of the movie, I'm with a lot of you where I'm like, that just wasn't that good. But the portions with Luke, I actually thought I really liked. And I also just liked that it wasn't, they didn't really follow the same formula that they had been following. So, and then obviously Carrie Fisher passed away at the end of Last Jedi, and that threw, I think, a wrench into things even further. Now, I don't understand, there's all this, you had these different directors, you had J.J. Abrams, you had, and such, but I don't understand, obviously you're going to have different directors on when you're doing multiple movies usually, but I don't understand why there wasn't a set 3-part story done before they even started shooting the first movie. I don't understand why there were, and again, I mean, I do understand with Carrie Fisher passing away, how they had to make changes that they weren't planning. So I understand that aspect, but it's just like, Rian Johnson, there's all this that he changed a lot of things, the vision that Abrams had for the sequels, he changed it in his movie. And it's like, he was the director, but why was he given so much leeway to essentially change things? That just never really made much sense to me. You would think with something like Star Wars, you would have, a set story in place, and then regardless of who's directing it. I mean, obviously, directors are going to take, add their little flair to it, but the overall story, I would think, would have remained the same. So Salome is checking out the little tassels, I think, on the top of my hat here. So hopefully Salome is going to try and steal my hat, probably. But yeah, so anyway, and then obviously bringing back Palpatine and making Rey, I didn't really like Rey being Palpatine's granddaughter or whatever. So first of all, my big question with that is, why wasn't Palpatine's kid as strong as everybody else? It seemed like that Palpatine's actual offspring had no Force abilities, and it all just went to Rey, which seemed kind of funny, and I didn't really like that. I actually would have preferred if they had just kept it as Rey was essentially a nobody and just was lucky and was gifted with the Force, and her parents were just people who left her for drinking money and such. That to me would have almost been more realistic and better. But Kyle says they were probably thinking one movie at a time. Sadly, they had to retcon so many things, so it ended up working as a disfan. Yeah, I don't understand that with a Star Wars movie. going in knowing you were going to have three movies. It wasn't like, the original Star Wars movies. Obviously, you do the first movie not knowing whether it's going to be a hit, not knowing if sequels are going to get greenlit or not. You saw that with a lot of those like the Matrix. I mean, the first Matrix movie was set up so you could definitely have a sequel, but it was also kind of a standalone movie. Same thing with the original Star Wars movie. But with these sequels, you knew it was Star Wars. I mean, frankly, you could put figures up on the screen and people would go see it. So, why you didn't have a well laid out story, three movie story already, planned out before you started shooting the first one was just kind of beyond me. Prophet says vision is important. Favreau and Filoni have a vision. I agree, and I think that's why the Mandalorian is so good. That's why the Clone Wars animated series is was so good. It's why I think some people don't like the Rebel series, but I think the Rebel series is every bit as good as the Clone Wars. So yeah, because they had vision and they knew the history. Dave Filoni knows Star Wars like the back of his hand. Only one that maybe knows Star Wars better than Filoni is Lucas himself. So, you know, that's exactly why I feel like, The Mandalorian has been so good is because they have an overall vision. Now, how far can they take that? Because, they are limited, since we know, I mean, I've talked about this like on my Facebook page where, The Mandalorian is kind of a middle piece of an overall story. We know the beginning, we know the end. This is, stuff that's happening in the middle, so it's filling in the gaps. But at the end of the day, we know what ends up happening. We know that Palpatine comes back to life. We know that Luke goes into hiding. We know, that the Rebel Alliance essentially falls and the, resistance is born and all that. So, there's only so many things that you can do in a middle piece when the ending is already written for you. And, I mean, I think they can make the ending better. Like, obviously, I mean, to me, it seems pretty obvious that Moff Gideon, the project that he is working on, is bringing Palpatine back to life. So whatever he's doing with Grogu's blood is in large part why we see Palpatine in the Rise of Skywalker. So, you know, I think that will end up making that better because they're going to flush that out more as opposed to, just a little brief, the dark side has mysterious, ways or whatever it was that he said. I mean, but still, at the end of the day, again, we know what's going to happen. Of course, you know, final episode, Luke Skywalker comes and takes Grogu with him. Well, oh yeah, Grogu is now rejoined the Jedi, but we know what happens to Luke's students. So big question is, and my guess is Grogu maybe doesn't stay with Luke that long because I have a feeling we will see Grogu again in the Mandalorian series. But if Grogu were to stay with Luke, then his outcome is not going to be a good one because he's likely going to be killed by Ben Solo and the Knights of Ren. So I don't know if really the ending of season 2 was good for Grogu or not. Jerry says JayC on a purist mode. Just kidding. I like episode 1 and 7 from an 80s kid's point of view. Yeah, I mean, episode. I like all of the Star Wars movies, even the prequels, even the sequels. I can watch them. I mean, obviously, to me, the best of the movies is still the original trilogy, which I've watched a million times. But I don't hate any of the movies. There are aspects of almost all of the movies. There are things that I don't like, even in the original trilogy. I wasn't a huge fan of the Ewoks. I didn't like how they killed or apparently killed Boba Fett off, which obviously they didn't kill him off, but you know, back then we all thought he was dead, so I didn't like that. But probably Empire to me is near perfect. But you know, like I said, they all have issues here and there, but I like the overall, you know, story of all of them. Kyle says, I bet Grogu will show up again halfway into Mando season 3. He is too important to the show. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Keep in mind, we have also got the Ahsoka series, so all of these are going to play off of each other, and it's hard to tell. You know, I have little doubt that we're going to see Grogu again, but where exactly he shows up or where he shows up next, that I don't entirely know. But yes, I agree. He's definitely going to show up at some point. And my guess is and like I said, I don't think he'll end up staying with Luke. Um, I think for whatever reason he'll end up, only staying with Luke for a little while. And, you know, so I could see him maybe not being in season 3 of The Mandalorian, but then showing up in season 4. And, I mean, Luke in. So let's be honest. The final episode, chapter 16, was probably the best episode to date, and in large part because of the ending. So, first of all, hats off to Favreau for keeping that a secret. I mean, he seems to be pretty good at keeping the big secrets. You know, one of the things that made Empire Strikes Back so, I think, memorable to so many back in the day is because of the revelation that Vader was Luke's father. Nobody saw that coming back then, and it was a total secret up until the movie aired. And so, I think we had kind of close to one of those moments with the final season. With Luke appearing. Now, there had been some rumors. I'd been hearing some rumors, that they were going to recast a young Luke and that they were going to bring him in the show. But, I mean, nothing very concrete. There were also rumors that Mace Windu was going to show up. Samuel L. Jackson was going to show up, at the end here. And, there's just been... I mean, there's 50 million rumors that fly around with these things, but I think for the most part, nobody really knew that Luke was going to come in and take Grogu away like he did. And I'm not lying. I choked up when I watched that scene, and part of it's the music. I mean, they do such a good job with the music. And especially in that episode when Luke is, the X-Wing flies in and then just like the little things like the expressions on Moff Gideon's face, when you really start to see him, when he realizes that it's Luke and you start to see the worry on his face, or like Grogu going up to the screen and putting his hand up because he senses it's a Jedi and everything. Just those little touches along with the music. Just it makes me tear up a little bit. So it wasn't just Luke in its own right, but just those little added details are to me what really make that scene so powerful and make that entire episode. I mean, to me, the entire episode was good. I mean, you had everything. You had Boba Fett, fighting Sasha Banks in the beginning. Which, seeing Boba Fett in action is always a cool thing. And you had, the Dark Troopers and Mandalorian fighting, the Dark Trooper. And then you had Mandalorian fighting Moff Gideon with the Darksaber. So, I mean, it had it all. You had laser battles and things like that. But to me, people wouldn't be talking about that episode like they are if it wasn't for the ending with Luke. And not just, obviously the diehard Mandalorian Star Wars fans, they're going to be talking about it no matter what. But people like friends of mine who are Star Wars fans, but they don't like live, eat, and breathe Star Wars. They don't collect toys. They don't, they were like, oh my god, that was so awesome, and stuff. So, and I've yet to see anyone say anything negative. I mean, that in this day and age of Star Wars is just amazing that nobody seemed to hated that episode. Um, so I went yesterday. I rewatched the entire season 2 from beginning to end. And that final episode still cracked me up, or choked me up. Ninja Knight says, "Hey JC, happy Christmas and happy New Year. Same to you, my friend." Ninja Knight's got a YouTube video up on his channel with an interesting theory or tidbit of news. He seems to think that Hasbro is going to be doing a Jurassic Park Transformer crossover using the Beast Wars Megatron, which seems very plausible to me. I've not heard anything concrete on it. My only thing with that I can see preventing that from happening is that Mattel is the master toy license holder for Jurassic Park. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but my guess is Mattel would do everything in their power to prevent Hasbro from doing anything Jurassic Park related. That doesn't mean they'd be successful, but to me, the fact that Mattel is the master toy license holder for Jurassic Park does shine a little doubt on that possibility. But we'll have to see. Lord Vengar with the super chat donation of $20, dude. Really appreciate it. Read an interesting take. Guy said Baby Yoda represents Star Wars future. Gideon represents Kennedy wanting to manipulate Grogu. Mondo represents Filoni protecting Grogu. Darksaber represents control of Star Wars. Filoni has. That's an interesting take on it. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I don't think Kennedy is as bad as people make her out to be, but I mean, definitely Filoni and Favreau, I think, are really where the future of Star Wars is at. So, Bean says digital Luke didn't bother him so much. Yeah, so when that scene played out. So again, there had been some rumors that maybe Luke was going to appear. The X-wing shows up. So my first thought is that Luke? Because who else is going to fly in by themselves with an X-wing? But then I was like, no, they're not going to bring Luke into it. It's got to be something else. And then you see the black cloak, and at this point, I'm like, well, they're definitely trying to make us think that it's Luke, but I'm still not convinced that it's Luke. And so I'm trying to look at the lightsaber hilt, because Luke's, lightsaber, his green lightsaber has a very unique looking hilt to it. So I'm trying to get a look at the hilt to see if it's his lightsaber hilt. And at first, when I first saw it, I was like, oh no, that's not his lightsaber. This can't be Luke. But, and I didn't even think about the glove. I didn't notice the glove until the second time I watched it. So I didn't even notice the one hand with the glove on. And so I'm watching it, and I'm like, I'm going back and forth, and I'm like, that's Luke. No, it couldn't be Luke. No, it's not Luke. And then it's like, and you start seeing the music and all that, and then it's like, as we get closer and closer, I'm like, oh, that's Luke. That's got to be Luke. And it's like, and then he pulls off the hood, and then there's this, oh my God, it's this young Luke. And at first I'm like, all right, is that actually Mark Hamill, or is that somebody else, or I'm trying to figure out. And then like the voice itself, I'm like, is that Mark Hamill? I think that's Mark Hamill, but it doesn't sound totally like Mark Hamill. It's like an old Mark Hamill trying to sound like a young Mark Hamill. And so I'm like, trying to figure out how they've done this and everything. But yeah, I think overall they did a pretty good job with it. And it makes me excited for what they might do in the future. Obviously, you can't have like Luke become a main part of these shows, because I don't think it would work. But you could bring him, for even though, Luke's role in the final episode was not that long, but it was so impactful that I think you could do things like that. And I would love to see them bring other characters. It's obviously Carrie Fisher, who's passed away, would be much more difficult. I mean, they did some stuff with her and the Rise of Skywalker. They did stuff with her at the end of Rogue One, but it would be hard to do Carrie Fisher. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. The technology for that kind of stuff is getting somewhat scary, but like Han Solo, and obviously I don't think they'd bring Harrison Ford in. I don't think they'd try and make a young Harrison Ford. I don't think Harrison Ford would be interested in coming in and doing that. But, bring in the actor from the Solo movie, to reprise, I don't think they should do another Solo movie, but I do think they should maybe bring him in for some of these shows, like the Boba Fett series. I mean, to me, if you're gonna have a Boba Fett series, Han Solo's gotta have to play some kind of role in it. I just, to me, the two kind of go hand in hand, and there's got to be a reckoning there, especially if you're kind of make. I mean, it's hard to tell what they're gonna do with Boba Fett. Is he gonna be this honorable good guy, or is he gonna go back to becoming this slimy crime lord, ruling Jabba's gang? I don't know, but I feel like they've got to bring Han Solo into it. So I'm really kind of keeping my fingers crossed to that. And I thought it was funny. Like it's like it's such a small universe when you think about it because okay, you've got Boba Fett who obviously knows who Luke Skywalker is. Of course, conveniently, Boba Fett wasn't on the ship, on the Imperial ship, when Luke comes, which is a good thing because talk about awkward. That would have been an awkward moment if Boba Fett had been there on the bridge of the ship when Luke came. Even though I guess technically Luke isn't the one that sent him into the Sarlacc pit. It was actually Han who hit his jetpack with the spear weapon, but it's still, basically Fett was fighting Luke. Last thing, before he lost the armor and went into the Sarlacc pit, he was fighting Luke. So that would have been an awkward moment. But you've got Boba Fett, who obviously knows who Luke Skywalker is. You've got Bo-Katan, who knows a lot of about the Jedi. Has been with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Has seen Ahsoka and a lot of the other Jedi over the years. You've got, I don't know, it's weird how all these characters are, kind of interconnected with one another. I love it, but it's kind of funny how in this big giant universe how you end up having all these characters kind of bumping into each other. Bean says personally it'd be fine if they recast Luke and Leia. I don't know. It would be hard. If they and definitely wouldn't have the same impact for me. Yeah, I think back to like the Star Trek movies with like when they recast like Chris Pine with Kirk and things. And I don't hate the Chris Pine universe, but to me Chris Pine is not Captain Kirk. William Shatner is hard to replace as Captain Kirk. So I don't know. I mean, obviously with Han Solo, they recasted him, and I didn't think that was too bad. I didn't think they did too bad of a job. It wasn't as good as Harrison Ford, but I didn't hate it. So I don't know if I'd want them to recast those characters. And honestly, I think it's kind of better if they just if they played more of a minor role like we saw in the Mandalorian series. I think it's more impactful. If we started seeing Luke in every episode, I don't think it would be that big a deal. If he became a regular, part of the series or any of these series, I don't think it would be as impactful. So I think they should keep those characters, those legacy characters, in reserve to use them sparingly, throughout these shows. And the way they did Luke in this Mandalorian episode, I thought was perfect. So You don't know me. Chris Pine can't fill Shatner's uniform. Bill's been too fat back in the original series days. William Shatner actually, his weight, he would gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. Same thing with his hair. He'd lose his hair. I think he started wearing a toupee very early on. But still, to me, William Shatner is 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 never. I don't think there's ever going to be another Kirk. John says people are already proposing Sebastian Stan as the new young Luke. Yeah, well, I mean that was the rumor before this episode even uh, aired, was that Sebastian Stan was going to be the new Luke Skywalker, and people had done mocked up Photoshop images of them. Um, so yeah, that was one of the going rumors. I think was they were going to bring him in as Luke Skywalker. I just don't see it. I mean, he does look a little bit like a young Mark Hamill, but I don't think he has the mannerisms or what have you to play a good Luke Skywalker. Besides, he's busy, doing, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So when's he gonna have time to do Star Wars? You don't know me. My favorite captain has always been Cisco. Oh, I love Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek series overall, but I still Kirk is still probably my favorite captain overall, but definitely Cisco is a great captain, and like I said, Deep Space Nine is actually my favorite Star Trek series. Kyle saying, "What is a Mandalorian Black Series figure that you would want to see Hasbro make?" Oh, what Black Series Mandalorian figure would I want them to see Hasbro make? Well, and that was actually something we were gonna talk about, or I was gonna talk about today. So good segue into that. So I did a, hopefully maybe you checked it out, but I did an article on Jedi Insider this week, going over the top characters from season two that I'm hoping that Hasbro makes into Black Series figures. So let me bring that up here. So if you haven't checked out the full article, go over to Jedi Insider. But so obviously we know Bo Katan is coming. And some of these, it doesn't take insider information to know that Hasbro's going to do figures of them. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Like Boba Fett, Ahsoka Tano. I mean, those are figures that are going to be coming. So I figure, they're going to have to do a version of Mandalorian every year. That's almost a given. So I figure the next Mandalorian figure we're probably going to get is one with the spear, the Beskar spear. And I figure, they could also include a Grogu with the satchel like he wore in the episode where he got the spear, the Jedi episode. So I figure that's probably one coming. Again, Ahsoka is going to be coming. She's got her own series coming, so no way they're not going to do that. So the Magistrate, this is one I think would maybe make a cool figure. Obviously, there are others that I would want to see first, but I wouldn't mind seeing them do a figure of her. And then, of course, the Michael Biehn character, the Lang character, I definitely would love to see that. I swear, when I watched that episode and he's like, my quarrel is not with you, Mando. I have flashbacks to the movie Tombstone, and I feel like Mando should have said, I'm your Huckleberry. And some pointed out, like, Mando did, like, spin his pistol into his holster, which was probably a nod to the Tombstone movie. Then we've got the gangster from the first episode of season two. So I think he would be a cool alien. I mean, he didn't have a major role in the series, but I think he would make a cool alien-like figure. And then the mechanic up from Tatooine, she's been in multiple episodes now. I feel like she's deserving of a figure. They could include her droids with her. The Frog Lady, another one that I feel like with their canister of eggs for Grogu to sneak into and eat. Now, there were a number of different Imperials that popped up in the season, but to me, Titus was one of the cooler ones, so I wouldn't mind seeing a figure of him. Then we've got our X-Wing pilots. And obviously, the Dave Filoni X-Wing pilot, not because, it was a major character or anything, but I just think Dave Filoni is deserving of an action figure. So hopefully we will get him. Fat Bib Fortuna. So hopefully this is a figure that we'll see Hasbro do, maybe with his throne. Notice the spear, or the staff, that is actually reminiscent from the original Kenner figure. Was not actually seen in Return of the Jedi, but the original Kenner figure had this staff, so they recreated that. It's little details like that just... And then the Doc, he seems like one that we definitely need to get. We're going to be seeing him again, obviously. This is another character that I think is really, I think we'll be seeing more of. He was in the first episode. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Mythrol or something. But the accountant, Reef Karga's accountant. Mayfield. I mean, we're going to see Mayfield. I think Mayfield's going to pop up in the in that Republic series, that new Republic series. I think that's where we're going to see him next. So I think he's going to become a major player. Of course, what version of him we get? This basic black outfit that he had at the end of Season 2's episode. Will we see him in the transport driver outfit? Or will we see him in his Season 1 outfit with the, weird gun backpack thing that he had? Obviously, this is another one a lot of people, I think, are going to want to have a figure of, the Sheriff, Cobb. Now, this is another character that I suspect we'll end up seeing again. Of course, he won't have the Boba Fett armor on anymore. But if they do a figure, obviously, I think they got to do it with the Boba Fett armor. Then we've got Boba Fett himself, but another big, again, Boba Fett, they're going to do, and probably more than one version. But, which one are they going to start off with? So are we going to get the Tatooine version with the gaffing stick? Are we going to get the Boba Fett armor with the beat up armor? Or are we going to get the cleaned up version? So I definitely want the cleaned up version. Out of these two, I think I'd probably rather have the Tatooine version, just because it's more unique. Though, of course, Hasbro, knowing Hasbro, they'll do the beat up armor and then they'll repaint it with the clean armor. So we'll probably end up getting both of those. Then we've got the Sasha Banks character. I'm sure she's going to get a figure at some point to go with Bo-Katan. Fennec character, she's going to pop up in the Boba Fett series, obviously. I believe she's going to be in the Bad Batch animated series. So, she's going to end up getting a figure. Of course, you customizers out there, I'm sure will take that and make your own Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Dark Trooper, robots, no way Hasbro's not going to do this one. Probably, my guess will be a deluxe figure. And then Luke, another one they're going to do. My guess is they'll take the recent Return of the Jedi one, give him an all-black cape and hood, give him the gloved hand, and voila. Now for vehicles, now obviously these would be for the vintage collection, not for the 6-inch Black Series. I don't see them doing 6-inch Black Series vehicles of this size. But obviously, an updated version of Slave One. I'm sure they're just going to take that vintage collection one that they just released, repaint it a little bit. Maybe give us an exclusive Boba Fett with like a soft goods cape that can sit down or something. And then I would like to see, the Mandalorian ship, the Gauntlet ship, which was featured a lot in the Clone Wars and Rebels shows, and then was seen here briefly in the final episode of The Mandalorian. And I'm sure we'll be seeing the ship more in season 3. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the ship that Mando starts using since his Razor Crest was blown to smithereens. So those are all figures that I definitely would love to see at some point. And like I said, many of them, Hasbro is going to do them. So it's not if, but when. And figures like Boba Fett, I'm sure we'll start seeing, very soon. Luke, which again, I see as just an easy mod on their existing Luke, they'll probably give us fairly quickly. Um, I did a list for season 1 last year, and they did about half the figure. They did about half the characters on that list. So we'll see how many from this one that they actually get out in the next year. Michael says if they do a Black Series Luke from The Mandalorian, he'll get it. There he says, Tatooine lady. How they talk in very normal accent. So, since we're on the subject of Star Wars and Mandalorian figures, I've thought we'd take a look at a Star Wars figure today in the review booth. So I've got the new Super Commando Mandalorian figure, which is a Walmart exclusive here in the review studio. This is one of my favorite versions of the Mandalorian armor. This is based on, the Darth Maul look. When Darth Maul took over and led the Mandos in the Clone Wars series, they started wearing this kind of armor. So you've got the horns. And you've got the red markings and everything. So I'm kind of hoping that, obviously, Darth Maul is dead based on Obi-Wan killing him again in the Rebels animated series by the time the Mandalorian series takes place. But I'm hoping that we see some incarnation of this armor pop up again in one of the live action shows. And then he's got the 2 pistols. He's got the jetpack, which is removable. I mean, it's a basic Mandalorian figure that Hasbro's done, but I just love the red markings and the helmet with the bone. You even have the bone here on the shoulder pads. He's got the 2 working holsters. So I pre-ordered this, the day it went up, the first time it went up on Walmart's website. It was the only one out of that group that I got. The Loyalist, which I'm still looking for, had sold out before I could get it. This was the first one that I wanted, so I went for it first. Hopefully I'll get a chance at the Loyalist figure as well at some point. It really sucks that Hasbro made these exclusives, especially to Walmart. Toy J says he doesn't like it's the Django body. Yeah. And I'm surprised they did, I don't know why, I forget his real name, but essentially the leader that ended up getting killed by Sabine in the Rebels series. I'm not sure why they didn't do that one as opposed to just what they call the Super Commando, which I'm not sure why they're called Super Commandos. Yeah, I don't know. The elbows, I don't think look. I mean, yeah, they don't bend very well. You're right. and of course you got the wires, so that limits some of the movement. But you don't get double hinged elbows, so that definitely is a little bit limiting. And it's not surprising with a figure of this type that Hasbro just used an existing mold and essentially repainted it with some slight modifications to save money. Tom says he wasn't chasing all the new Mando figures and decided to spend his money on the snow speeder. I did not get the snow speeder. Um, I just I ended up putting my 6-inch TIE fighter in storage because I just didn't have room for it. So the snow speeder is not as big as the TIE fighter, obviously, but I just decided not to. And I've even seen it go on some pretty deep discounts a few times, like on Amazon, but I still haven't got. I did finally get the vintage collection Mandalorian troop transport. Price went down to $45, which I think is what it's still at right now. And so I finally dropped the hammer on that one and got that. I'd seen like the tank from Rogue One, it go down as low as like $30 at one point. So I was hoping maybe it would get that low, but with the popularity of Mandalorian, the Mandalorian show and everything on such a rise, I figure the price is more likely to start going back up than continue to go down. So, $45 was a decent discount. So, and I definitely wanted to get that one. You know, so I went on and finally got that one. Classic action figure says he just hopes we get a Return of the Jedi Bib Fortuna before we get a Mandalorian one. Yeah, that's true, especially since we've got a Black Series Jabba the Hutt. Uh, we kind of need a Bib Fortuna. I agree, and I honestly I could see them doing both. Kyle needs a re-release of Jabba. Now, so how the hell did Bib Fortuna survive Return of the Jedi? I mean, he was on Jabba's sail barge when it exploded, or at least he was on the barge right before it exploded. Obviously, he somehow got off, but it's like, how the hell did that dude survive? So hopefully, we'll get an explanation of that. At some point during the Boba Fett series, because I mean, obviously, Jabba was choked to death before the sail barge exploded, so he was definitely dead. So there was no way they could pretend that he somehow didn't die. But Bib Fortuna was kind of weird, surprising to see there on Jabba's throne. And then it was like you'd think he had had a little more security than what he had. I mean, obviously he maybe wasn't as ruthless as Jabba, but you would think that he might have a little more. If he's running Jabba's essentially empire, you'd think he would have had a little more security around him than what he apparently did. Well, that's true. How did Boba Fett survive? But I would assume that, I mean, he was wearing Beskar armor, right? And we see how indestructible that armor is. Back then during Return of the Jedi, we really didn't know much about his suit, but now we know that, his suit's made out of very indestructible armor. So it stands to reason that the armor protected him from the Sarlacc's stomach, and he somehow probably blasted his way out and crawled out. Now, to me, the bigger question is, how did he lose his armor once he got out of the Sarlacc pit? How did it end up, getting into the hands of the Jawas and stuff? And why didn't he go back and sooner? Why did he wait for, Mando to come get the armor and then go to him to get it instead of just going and getting it himself? Since obviously he'd been around for a while doing around, and he had gotten his Slave One ship back, obviously, so. Scruffy nerd Boba got fat on a desert planet. Yeah, he put on a few pounds. I'm kind of surprised they didn't make him lose weight for the role, but Now, another big question I have. Okay, so Mando has the dark saber, and you know, Moff Gideon set this whole thing up where you know, in order for Bo-Katan to get it back, she supposedly has to fight for it from Mando to get it back. But that really doesn't fit with established history because Bo-Katan originally got the dark saber from Sabine, who just gave it to her. They didn't have to fight for it. You know, she gave it to her because Sabine decided she was the best one to lead Mandalore. So I'm not sure if she could take it from Sabine without having to fight for it. I'm not sure why she couldn't take it from Mando without having to fight for it. It seems to me they're trying to set up that Mando is going to end up becoming, at least temporarily, the leader of Mandalore. But to me, they're going to need to explain exactly why Mando can't just give her the darksaber like Sabine gave Bo-Katan originally the darksaber. Prophet says his theory is Krayt Dragon causes the demise of the Sarlacc. The regurgitated Boba Fett lying in the desert. Jawas take the armor. Tusken Raiders adopt him in their clan, like Tom Cruise and Dances with Wolves. You mean Kevin Costner? But yeah, that's actually not a bad theory. Michael asks, "Am I ready for WandaVision?" Yeah, I'm looking for. I mean, I've been so excited for Star Wars, and the honest to God truth is, I've lost some enthusiasm for Marvel just because it's been so long since we had anything new for Marvel as far as movies or what have you. So I'm definitely ready for some new Marvel stuff. And while I'm not as excited for WandaVision as I am, say, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I am I definitely going to check it out, and I'm hoping that it's going to be really good. And just to get off subject a little bit, but I don't know how many of you checked out the new Wonder Woman movie that debuted on HBO Max this past weekend. Well, Christmas Day actually, and also opened in some theaters, but I think probably most of us watched it on HBO Max. But not terribly impressed. I didn't think it was a horrible movie, but I didn't think it was a great movie either. Definitely not as good as the first one, and to me, it kind of threw everything out the window of the first one. You know, with her, you know, basically going underground after World War One and not being seen again until Lex Luthor discovered her in Dawn of Justice. So I don't know. DC to me just continues to struggle. I don't want them to struggle. I want to see good DC movies, but at best we seem to get is just average movies from them, and which is disappointing. So, and like I said, I didn't hate Wonder Woman 84. I didn't think it was, oh my god, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm definitely glad I was able to watch it in my home, not having to go to the theater and pay movie ticket prices and all that. But I was not wowed by it in any way. Jerry says, "Why is Grogu's race inclined to Jediism? Are they naturally powerful?" That seems to be a going theory, but hopefully that's something that will be explained. But yeah, I mean, we've only seen three beings from that race. We've seen Yoda, obviously, and then Yaddle was in episode one, and then mysteriously disappeared and was never seen again. And then now Grogu. So I don't know where Yoda's race originates from. I don't know if all of Yoda's race is inherently strong with the Force. And it's kind of weird because, I mean, obviously Grogu has the Force, but at least so far, I wouldn't necessarily say he's super powerful with the Force. Now, we call him a child, but he's 50 years old. Now, obviously, Yoda's race has a very long lifespan, but is he really a child? Or, that those are things that are not entirely clear to me. So, will he get more powerful? Or is he always going to get sleepy after he does anything with the Force? I mean, I don't know. Um, but yeah, as far as Yoda's race, it's definitely interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I saw a funny meme on social media where somebody had taken the scene where R2D2 comes up and looks at Baby Yoda, and they said that somebody had translated what R2D2 said in the episode, and basically they were like, "Oh my fucking god, Luke! It's a Baby Yoda." It just cracked me up. Storm Shadow says, "Yo, man, Happy New Year. Same to you, my man." Raw talk, raw deal. I know it's Friday, bull, but knowing Target. I'm assuming there was more to that. Maybe in regards to G.I. Joe. So I don't know how many of you collect G.I. Joe, but obviously Friday is going to be when everyone runs to Target to try and get the new Firefly and Cobra Viper classified figures, because that's the official sale date for those two figures. And yes, I will probably be running to my local Target to see if I can grab them. Though right now, at least, based on BrickSeek and Pop Finder, none of the stores around me have even gotten them in stock yet. So Raw Talk, Raw Deals says some silly associate will put them out on Thursday. Well, I mean, obviously, some people have already been finding them, so I wouldn't be surprised. Tom says Masters of the Universe Origins are no longer Walmart exclusives. Well, going into the new year, they will no longer be exclusives. The exact time, I'm not entirely sure of the exact day for which other places can start like putting them up for pre-order and stuff, but should be fairly early in the year. In fact, I should probably see if I can find that out. See what the official sale date is for Masters of the Universe Origins for everybody beyond Walmart. Bullwinkle 80 says my local Target has them in the office waiting for the street date. I will be there at 8 a.m. on the dot. And it's unclear to me how many figures the Targets are actually getting. I think each one comes in their own case, which I think each case has 6, but I'm not sure if Targets, if it's like the first wave where they're only getting one case at a time, meaning that each store is only going to have 6. Those Vipers are going to be a pain in the ass to get, because even non-scalper are going to end up, buying as many of those things as they can. Storm Shadow, am I going to watch the new Transformers? Yes, I am. I've heard pretty good things about the second season, so I'm excited for that. 1977 asks, what's my favorite figure of 2020? I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint it to one exact figure, but because I collect different lines, I love the new GI Joe classified stuff. I love the new NECA turtle stuff, assuming you can find them. I'm waiting. Somebody hooked me up with a Krang and the Splinter um, Baxter 2 pack, and they found them in California, and they mailed them to me. It cost really awesome of them, but the damn things have been held up in the U.S. Postal Service hub there in California since before Christmas. So God knows when they're actually going to show up here. I mean, at least I imagine they will show up eventually. So I'm happy, but it's like post office needs to get its butt in gear. Tom says, "What's my top five?" Let's say I haven't been thinking about it from like just in general. Like I look at it for each line. So like GI Joe, like last week I did a video where I kind of gave you my top five GI Joe classified. So, and I've been thinking about like Marvel Legends. My top favorite lines of the year I would say are Marvel Legends, GI Joe classified, NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those are probably my top three, followed probably by Star Wars Black Series and Masters of the Universe Origins. So yeah, I'm still narrowing it down on the Marvel Legends. And honestly, this year I've probably bought the least amount of Marvel Legends this year, which I know is kind of weird because that's not to say that I haven't liked the Marvel Legends. It's just there have been so many other things that have kind of like taken my interest. I mean, and I've bought a lot of Marvel Legends, so don't get me wrong, but I haven't bought every single Marvel Legend that's been released this year. So, I've only had hands-on experience with some of the stuff, so it's not like it's necessarily my favorite out of everything that was released this year. It's based on out of what I've had in my hand, you know, my favorite. So, like, definitely, I think Kingpin is going to make my top five list for Marvel Legends. That War Machine figure, I think, is going to make my top five for Marvel Legends this year. Um, but I don't know. I'm still kind of fine tuning that list. I do plan on probably doing a video here in the near future talking about that. So stay tuned. That says, I wonder if the McFarlane DC wave with Superman Red Sun will stay Target and GameStop. No, I don't think any of those are specific. I think it's just Todd gives the big retailers the jump, which I think kind of sucks, kind of screws the small guy. But I think eventually, other places will carry it. And I would not actually, for me personally, I don't have the DC Multiverse line on my top toy lines of the year. And I think so first of all, I've only bought a small handful. I've got the Deathstroke figure, I've got the first Superman and the first Batman figure they released, I've got the Flash, and then I got the Flash with the Red Death 2 pack. So those are the only ones that I've actually bought this year for the Multiverse line. And I think, like the Devastator figure looks like a really nice figure, but it just didn't have a super appeal to me because I really have not been that much invested in the metal storyline. So none of those figures really were that appealing to me, which is why I didn't get them. It's not to say they're not good figures. It's not to say that, it's just for me personally, they didn't have a lot of personal appeal. And to me, the DC Multiverse line is just way too much Batman right now. So that's why I would not put it in my top favorite list. Again, that's not saying that they're not good figures or what have you. It's just for me personally, it's not a line that's been as appealing to me this year, which is a little disappointing because I like DC figures and but I'm looking for a little more variety than just Batman, and and especially these Batman stories that I really, these more modern Batman stories that I have not really read or been invested in. And I wish I had the money to buy everything, but I don't. And so I got to pick and choose, just like a lot of you guys do. I got to pick and choose what I get and what I don't get. Mafex Infinity War Thor is amazing. Haven't seen it in anyone's top 10. That's crazy. I have not, so I haven't gotten any import figures this year, I don't think. Or if I did, very few. So I don't have, that's another one I don't have. The Warrior Thor that they just showed the official images of last week looks like a really cool figure. Of course, Hasbro's yet, and I do want to use the word yet, release their own Warrior Thor from Endgame. But again, it's hard for me to get a lot of those import figures because of the costs and everything. The downside to collecting a lot of different lines is you can't collect everything unless you're just like rich, because it's just too much. If all you collect is Marvel Legends, it's much easier to buy, practically every Marvel Legend or what have you. But when you collect like G.I. Joe and you collect Marvel and you collect DC and you collect Transformers and you collect Star Wars and you collect, it becomes much more difficult to buy everything that comes out. Yeah, Prophet says Batman Beyond looks cool. Yeah, that's one I probably will check out. And yeah, I mean, I've watched other people's reviews of a lot of those DC Multiverse figures and seen them and stuff. So I, by no means I'm saying that the Multiverse line is a bad line or that the figures are bad. It's just for me, they have not been that personally appealing enough for me to buy more than just a handful of them. You can have a really awesomely made figure, but it's of a character such that it just doesn't personally interest you, and so you don't get it. Kyle says he passed on the Iron Patriot Marvel Legend figure, I assume from the movies. Yeah, that was a pretty good figure. I like the comic book deluxe War Machine. That's one of the best figures I think Hasbro did this year. Tom says, in this economy, I've noticed a lot of collectors streamlining their lines. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you almost have to. I mean, if you're going to collect a lot of different lines, and I mean, some collectors, especially like reviewers, they'll buy them to review them, but then they'll turn around and sell them, which I don't resell a lot of my figures. So, but and I mean, I sometimes if you want to be a reviewer, which I think is a good thing, who reviews more than just one thing, that's not a bad way to do it. But since I haven't been doing a lot of reviews this year personally, that's another reason why I haven't bought like just a ton of stuff. Michael says, has there ever been any Marvel What If figures before? No, I don't think so. At least not like in the 6-inch lines. Lord Venger says, how does everyone feel about the new 6-inch Master Chief, Halo Master Chief from Jazzwares? That's another one I haven't gotten. I did see those not too long ago at my local Walmart, but I've not gotten any of them. Now, I did see with like at least some initial reviews that I'd seen for that figure that some people were having some quality control issues with it. So I don't know if that's something that was only with a few of them or if that's something that's been a problem across the board. Overall, I mean, from what I've seen, they look like good figures and stuff. But the only downside I recall seeing for those is just that some people had some breakage issues or what have you. Red Hulk was another one that I thought was a really good figure. I agree with you, Bean. I don't know if I'd put it on my top 5 list, but definitely that was a solid figure. Avon says he likes the path I've taken with the channel. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Kyle says Master Chief is a terrible figure. Rod, Raw Talk says I might stick to just the Marvel Comics Legends and get rid of all the movie figures. I like both movie figures and comic figures, though. I will tell you that I don't know if you saw those. Well, we've seen images a few weeks ago that had leaked out, but those Eternal figures, to me, I think I will be passing on that entire wave. I guess when the movie finally comes out next November, if it's really good, I guess it could possibly change my mind, but when Hasbro didn't do a Celestial as the Build-A-Figure for that wave, which I knew was a long shot, but that I would have definitely gotten those figures had they done the Celestial. But that Gilgamesh figure as the Build-A-Figure just doesn't do anything for me. Classic Action Figure says the Transformer Siege line was pretty awesome this year. Yeah, I mean they've been doing some pretty cool stuff with the Transformers. Um, I don't collect, you know, I pick up a few here and there. I mostly when it comes to Transformers, I generally just stick to masterpieces. And once you get like a masterpiece, it's kind of hard. I mean, as good as the Hasbro stuff is, to me, they're still not as good as like a masterpiece. So obviously, not everyone can afford the masterpieces, and it's a good thing that they only do like one or two masterpieces a year. But but yeah, definitely, those have been pretty cool figures. NECA is shipping some of your pre-orders. Prophet says he's finally getting Casey Jones. Yeah, I'm still waiting on a shipping notice for my Metalhead figure. That was the only one that I pre-ordered from him, but I don't know when that's going to ship out. Toy Chase says the Transformer line was unbelievable this year. Yeah, I mean, I was impressed with those Beast War the Kingdom figures from the first wave, which Hasbro sent me. I probably would not have bought them on my own. One of the few things that Hasbro sent me this year. But those were definitely pretty solid figures. I mean, some of them had some issues, but here and there. But overall, and I'm not a big Beast Wars collector, so there was no nostalgia factor for me with those. But I thought those were all pretty solid figures. Michael asks, will Black Knight get a Marvel Legends figure for the Eternals? I haven't heard anything. If there is going to be a Black Knight one, it's probably going to be a store exclusive, but I don't know. Definitely, obviously, he's not in the regular wave, and I mean, we don't even really know whether he's going to be Black Knight in the movie, do we? I mean, we know Dane Whitman is in the movie, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be, donning Black Knight armor or what have you. Jared asks if anyone knows when the Super Shredder pre-orders will ship. I've not heard anything specific. I believe soon. I don't know if any have started shipping out. I think right now they've been focusing mostly on the Raza 2-pack. Toga. Yuval says if you want a staff for your Cobra Commander, your classified Cobra Commander, you can use the one from the Masters of the Universe Origins Tila. It kind of works. I'll have to try that. I didn't think about that. Toy J says when I was at Toy Fair, me and Robo from Fwoosh were drooling over the NECA product. Yeah, yeah, NECA had some cool stuff. I mean, obviously, a lot of it's out now. Most of the turtle stuff that they showed at Toy Fair last year was out. The Defenders of the Earth figures will be out at Walmart, starting at Walmart early next year. Jerry says you can kit bash the Jon Snow figure as Black Knight. Those are on clearance now. Yeah, he probably could. Though, if you're talking about the McFarlane ones, those are 7 inch. So it might be a little tall. Prophet says Super Shredder is shipping soon. Michael asks if I'm looking forward to the new Masters of the Universe series on Netflix. Yes, I am. That's one I'm hoping will be really good. To me, it's still kind of hard to wrap my head around how they're going to do, like, essentially continue from the original Filmation series, but then kind of like shift it where I guess something catastrophic happens and it changes everything up. I assume it's going to make things a little more serious because if you go back and you watch the original Filmation, it's kind of campy. But what's up, David? Have I ever Avon asks, have I ever used a clear rubber band in order to place Captain America's shield on his back on the Marvel Legends? I assume you're talking about the movie ones, since the comic ones have the little pegs you can just plug it in. But no, I've never tried that. The best G.I. Joe roadblock figure is Lothar from the Defenders of the Earth, says Blake. Toy Chase says NECA products are flying off shelves. Well, definitely the turtle stuff are. Most of the other stuff I see, I mean, I'm not saying they're not selling, but I don't have a problem finding most of the other stuff at like Target and stuff for NECA. Just the turtle stuff. Toy Chase says the Batman cape for the Michael Keaton one for SH Figure Arts was horrible. I didn't get that one. I got the Mezco one, which I'm still waiting for that to arrive. I don't know. I forget when that was supposed to ship out, but I didn't get the SH Figure Arts one. MS, am I an in-package collector or do you open all your figures? I generally open my figures. A few here and there I'll keep in the package, but for the most part, I open my stuff. The Netflix series wouldn't beat the live-action Dolph Lundgren movie, says John. I hope it's better than the live-action movie. Quinn Comics in the house. Happy New Year to you too, man. Everett says he hopes that NECA re-releases the Mirage figures. I think there's a good possibility of that. I mean, if they're going to start the Mirage stuff back up like it looks like they're going to, I would suspect that they will re-release at least like the Turtles and Shredder and the Foot and obviously April. So yeah, I think there's probably a good chance of that. Jared says he hopes I have a good New Year. Same to you, my man. This is gonna be a really weird New Year's. Not that I mean, I'm old, so I don't like the last year, even before COVID last year for New Year's. I just stayed in with my wife, and I think we played Rummy and watched the ball drop on TV. So it's not like we go out and party or anything anymore for New Year's. But this year is going to be weird. Like just watching like the ball drop at Times Square this year, when there's like going to be nobody there really. It's going to be weird. Blake says, any update hint on the Marvel Legends figures with a tail that's coming out? Still think it's Tiger. I have not heard anything more on that, so that's my going guess is Tigra, but we'll have to wait and see. It says Happy New Year, same to you. I hope it's Tigra. Well, now, well, I mean, I got the Tigra, but I mean, I guess if I had to pick, I mean, it wouldn't really fit the clue in my opinion, but I hope it's either Wolf Bane from X Factor or Pharaoh from X Force. But neither of those characters really have tails, so I don't think it's either one of those. But I do hope we get those next year. Michael says, "Will there be a Marvel Legends Carnage figure based on the appearance in the Venom sequel?" I would, assuming we actually see Carnage in the sequel, then I would say there's probably a very good chance, but I haven't heard anything. Speaking of NECA, I'm really digging those figures of the boys that they showed off on Christmas. I think that Homelander figure looks awesome. A lot better than the Mafex one, at least based on the images that we've seen so far. So those are figures from NECA that I'm looking forward to. You Don't Know Me wants Death Cry, just for niche reasons. Alex says, I'm awesome with the live streams. Thanks, man. Thanks for watching. Toy Chase says he's looking forward to the Mafex Homelander. I mean, I hope the. I mean, again, we've only seen those early images for the Mafex one, so I do hope that the Mafex one ends up looking better, the final version. But based on images that we've seen from the two companies as of right now, I think the NECA ones look better than the Mafex ones. Well, I mean, Mafex has only announced Homelander so far, but I think the NECA Homelander looks better than the excuse me than the Mafex one. That may change, you know, but like I said, right now, based on the images that we have seen, Kyle asks if they'll do translucent. Yeah, translucent will be in just a package, no actual figure. I would laugh if somebody tried to do it. I could even see that as like a gag con exclusive or something. And what's funny, if they did something like that, it'd probably end up like going for buku bucks on the secondary market. Classic action figure. Any word on Toy Fair 2021? Well, I mean, Toy Fair 2021 in February is not happening as we know it. Whether there's something virtual, I suspect companies will show stuff off virtually, but the actual event is not happening this year. Now, maybe something later in the year, around May timeframe, depending on what's going on with vaccines and COVID and everything, is possible. But I don't know. I haven't heard enough details. I don't know if it would be because that starts to run into the summer conventions with a lot of the toy manufacturers. So I don't know how that would play out at all. But as far as like February timeframe, there's not going to be a big, New York gathering like every year. COVID, even with the vaccines starting to come out with COVID, there's not going to be enough people are not going to have gotten their vaccines yet for an event like that to be able to go forward. But I do, I suspect that virtually we'll see stuff. Yeah, I think as far as big conventions with toy reveals, probably San Diego Comic Con next year is assuming everything goes well with the vaccines and all, would be the first convention that takes place with a actual physical presence. Yeah, the Vanisher. Blake, dude, again with a generous donation, $100. You too, man. Says have a great New Year's. Keep up the great work. I'm gonna I'm gonna do something one of these days where like I'm gonna have this big like I've been experimenting with Streamlabs and I'm still trying to but like when somebody makes a super donation like Blake does on a regular basis, I mean I'm gonna have like the screen just like shine up with their name. I appreciate it, man. I really do. Sure, it says love the hat. Thanks, man. Telling me he likes it too. She's been trying to steal it. John says, "Am I excited for the Suicide Squad second attempt movie?" Right now, I'm not really excited for any DC movie until they seemingly get their act together. It's hard to get excited for DC. I think the first DC movie that I might have a chance of being excited for is the Flash movie. with like Michael Keaton and stuff. And I think that's going to be their best attempt to try and get things back on track with their cinematic universe. But yeah, like again, like the one going back to the Wonder Woman movie, it was like it just kind of had thrown everything else out the window. It seemed like, and so it was like I even heard something about like now Wonder Woman 84 is supposed to be an alternate universe or something. I don't know. I did like the scene at the mid-credit scene in Wonder Woman. Maybe I shouldn't say because just I did like the mid-credit scene at the end of Wonder Woman. I did like that. That was a nice little gesture. Jerry says Jay's live streams have the coolest members, including himself. I agree with you, man. You guys are great. Okay, do you guys like do you tune into a lot of different people's live streams? I know a lot of people are doing live streams these days, so I know Dan Who's been doing a lot of live streams. Of course, he only talks about Marvel Legends usually. And then like Unparalleled Universe has been doing live streams. That dude, he's had live streams that literally gone on for like at least 6 hours. I don't know how he does it. I agree, Raw Talk. Kyle, did I like Cheetah? I I didn't like. I thought the build up of her was decent, but then the ending payoff when she actually became Cheetah, I didn't. I thought that ended up being kind of corny. So I guess overall, no. Blake says I appreciate. He says I'm the only person he gives super chats to. I appreciate it, man. Quinn Comics wants them to see do a Jack Nicholson Joker. I'm not sure if he's talking about McFarlane or who, but yeah, I mean, I would love a Jack Nicholson Joker, but I don't see it happening because I think Jack Nicholson is not too keen on allowing his rights to be used, or so I've heard. How Hot Toys managed to do it, I don't know. Toy Chase is part of Unparalleled Universe's Tuesday crew. Love that live stream. Yeah, the only thing about his live streams is every time I've tuned into them, he's not talking about toys. He's talking about music or something like that. And I mean, that's cool if that works for him and everything. But like, if I'm going to tune into a toy reviewer's live stream, I want to talk about toys. And maybe it's just bad timing on my part. Like I said, he does some long ones. So I'm sure he probably talks about a number of different things. Stilkman says Wonder Woman 84 special effects weren't that good. I agree. I had that thought too when I was watching it. I mean, they weren't horrible, but I was like, for this day and age, those special effects, when she's like swinging around on her with her lasso and stuff, compare it to like Spider-Man or something, and I didn't think it looked very good either. So I agree with you. But like I said, my biggest complaint with Wonder Woman 84 was that, like, she's running all around Washington, D.C. in her Wonder Woman outfit. There's no way in hell she wouldn't have been caught on cameras and stuff, and there would be a established record of her there in the 80s. So how nobody knew about her, come time of Dawn of Justice and everything, how nobody seemed to know who she was or anything other than this one brief photo from World War I made no sense. It just totally screwed that whole thing up. So that was my biggest complaint with the overall premise of the movie, is they didn't really explain that in any way. When they first announced that it was going to take place in the 80s, I thought they would have at least come up with some kind of decent explanation of how, you know, nobody knew, saw her or what have you, but they really didn't. They had her running around the streets of Washington D.C. and it's just like, yeah, no way. I live in that area, and there's just no way, you know, the stuff that happened in that movie wouldn't be recorded and stuff, and that everyone would know who she was, or at least had seen. They might not know her by name, but they would have at least seen her. I mean, they could have even done something clicheous, like had a wish be made that nobody remembered it, but they didn't. So, and for a movie that took place in the 80s, they didn't do a great job of hitting that nostalgia factor of the 80s. Like a good example would be like Stranger Things on Netflix. When you watch that movie, you feel like you're watching something that took place in the 80s. Whereas with Wonder Woman, they had a few things with like clothes and stuff, but for the most part, it did not really feel like the 80s. Now, again, I'm from the area, so like when they were in the subway system and they had the electronic subway signs, those are something that were installed in the last few years. That's not how the subway system in Washington, D.C. looked back in the 80s. So to me, that also kind of took away from it, that they to me, just didn't really do a very good job of capturing the overall look and feel of the 80s, which kind of why do a movie in the 80s? I mean, they could have easily done this movie, set it in current time, and frankly, I think that would have been better if they'd done that. But if you're going to set it in the 80s time period, you should probably do a better job of capturing the overall look and feel of the 80s. Kyle says, fun fact, Stranger Things has the power of the Force Millennium Falcon and not the original Kenner one. That's funny. Now, I grant you, on the subway system, only somebody from who lives in this area and would have probably caught something like that. But I had to laugh when they were in the subway and they had those electronic signs. You know, John could. No, I don't think she could. Toy Chase, man, thanks. $1.99. Do I sell Toy News T-shirts? I have in the past, um, but I don't currently have anything available for sale. But probably will at some point in the future. I do have Toy News shirts, but I don't currently have any up for sale. I actually have some shirts for Toy News, Marvelous News, Jedi Insider, and T-Formers, which I have sold in the past, but Kyle says, why was she paying for airfare fare if she could fly herself? John Estrada says, doesn't they learn making a funny villain doesn't work? The villain didn't bother me that much. Maxwell Lord. Yeah, he didn't. I thought he was okay. You don't know me, says DC is still trying to make a movie like the Keaton Batman. Well, when the opening scene of Wonder Woman, I did feel like they were trying to make it very much like, I don't know if the Michael Keaton Batman, but like it almost to me had more of a feel of the 66 Batman series than like the Michael Keaton movie. So like, and just that opening scene, the whole movie wasn't that way, but that opening scene in the mall, to me had it very much kind of that feel, that kind of campy feel, and I think they were deliberately going for that. Um, but yeah, Kyle wants to know who's excited for WandaVision. Like I said, I'm hoping it's not out of all the shows, and because I think it's because it's going to be kind of weird because it's kind of done part comedy, at least my understanding of it. So I'm a little hesitant of how that's going to work out. But I think One Division has potential to be good, but it also has potential it could be bad. So it's one of those where I don't have high expectations. I have kind of mid expectations, and it could go either way. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But I mean, like I said, I'm excited for anything. It's been so long since we've gotten anything new from Marvel that you know, just for that reason alone, I'm excited. I don't think we'll get I don't think we'll get a trailer for another Marvel movie until Black Widow actually hits. So, like Jay says, Black Widow will make Wonder Woman look like The Bachelor. I hope. I mean, to me, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Black Widow to be good because again, it's been so long since we've had a Marvel movie that if Black Widow's not really awesome, I think people are going to be let down. So I think there's more pressure on Wonder Woman to be, or not Wonder Woman, but more pressure on Black Widow to be good, or more writing, I would say, on Black Widow being good than even Wonder Woman. Bean says WandaVision serving as a bedrock for of sorts for Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange 2. Yeah, and I think if they do a good job of that, then that will make WandaVision much more interesting. So I guess to me that a lot of ways is how much of a lead way is WandaVision going to be into these other things. Black Widow has a better foundation than Wonder Woman. Yeah, but you could have probably made that argument for a Captain Marvel. And while I don't think Captain Marvel was a bad movie, it wasn't a great movie either. He says he thinks it's a good thing that we've been without Marvel content this long. Endgame was a big ending. It needed a rest, even if they didn't intend it to be this long of a rest. You could have a point there. Of course, we had Spider-Man after it. We've had Spider-Man since Endgame. So, and to me, Spider-Man Far From Home, well, again, not a bad movie, but I didn't think it was a fantastic movie. So, Christopher asked, do I think Wonder Woman was better than Captain Marvel? I'd probably say Captain Marvel was better just because it did a better job of filling in a piece of the puzzle of the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe, whereas Wonder Woman was just kind of off. It added nothing to the, in my opinion, to the DC Cinematic Universe. In fact, it kind of took away from it. So, from that standpoint, I would say Captain Marvel was a better movie, but I probably like Wonder Woman better than Captain Marvel as a character. So from that standpoint, I would say I probably liked Wonder Woman better. But neither one was like a fantastically great movie in any way. Well, we're getting on to being 10 o'clock, so I think it's probably time to wrap it up here. But I do want to say thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you, everyone, this year. I mean, I know it's been a rough year all around for everybody. So I just want to thank everybody who has supported, whether it's here on YouTube or whether you go to the websites or, even if you just follow me on Facebook or something, appreciate you checking out my content, listening to me ramble, throughout the year. Hopefully next year, just in general, will be a better year. I definitely on the toy front, there's some cool things I think are going to be coming next year. So at the very least, we've got that to look forward to in 2021. But I want to wish you all a great and happy new year. Be safe out there, guys. If you are going to go out and party or whatever, be safe. And I probably will not talk to you again until 2021. But like I said, be safe. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later. This never has the same effect when I gotta go over here and hit the ending after saying catch you guys later.
Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News message boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.